Now, what I want to do tonight is I want to use one example, Peter, so turn with me to Luke 22, an example of failure, the power of intercession, the process of redemption. Luke chapter 22, verse 31. It says, and the Lord said, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan had desired to have you. Now this word desired here, it means that Satan has demanded to have Peter. Listen to me. He's slobbing at the mouth. He's chomping at the bit. Listen, he wants him. He wants him bad. Now, you know the thing that blows my mind about this whole story is how Jesus deals with this process. He says Satan has desired to have you, and then it says this, that he may sift you as wheat. You know what this word sift, it means he wants to sink his teeth into you and rip you apart until there's nothing left. Now what amazes me about this whole process is that Jesus, when he goes into the next few verses, he's saying, I'm not going to pray that the devil stops. I'm not going to pray that the Father would hold him back from getting you. See, this is what blows our mind. Oftentimes, when we hear about Jesus interceding for us, we want to think that Jesus is praying that the devil will stop. That's not what he said. Look at what he says here. Verse 32. He says, but I have prayed for thee already in advance. I mean, this is the part I love about this whole story as I'm looking into it. Is that Jesus already knew what was going to happen. He already saw the devil wanted him, but he prayed in advance. He interceded. Watch this. He put in a request to the Father on Peter's behalf before it happened. He interceded for him. He says this. He says, I prayed for thee. But watch this. He didn't pray that it would stop. He says, but I prayed that thy faith fail not. This word fail not, it means not to give up or to cease or to die. He says, I pray that when you go through this whole thing, man, you won't die. You won't throw in the towel. You won't wave the white flag. You won't turn your back. He says, I prayed already for you that your faith will be able to stand the test. He says, I've already interceded for you, Peter. Now, why does he pray for his faith? Watch this. Because your faith is the heartbeat of your spiritual life. In the natural, if your heart stops, your life stops. In the spirit, if your faith stops, your life stops. So Jesus says, I'm not going to pray that the devil doesn't get to you. He says he's going to get to you. But I'm praying that when you go through this thing, that your faith keeps on beating. He goes on and he says, is that thy faith fail not? And he says, and when thou art converted. This word converted means to revert. When you've turned back around, or watch this, when you get back on track. He's saying this. He says, now when Satan gets a hold of you, he says he's going to strike a blow to you, but it's going to knock you silly. He says it's going to knock you out, and you're going to be sitting there, your head's going to be dazing. He says you're going to be seeing stars. He says, but at some point, you're going to regain your composure. At some point, you're going to get up. At some point, you're going to be in your right mind to move forward. He says, now, when that time comes, I want you to know that when you're moving forward, that you're not moving forward for yourself, that I pray for you that your faith fail not, because when you go through this, your strength that I'm going to give you is going to be for the benefit of someone else. He says, listen, I feel my help coming on tonight, baby. He says, listen, he says it's going to be for the benefit of someone else. He says, strengthen your brother. Now, this is the thing I love about this here. Now, let me just show you this. Verse 33. He says, and he said unto him, Lord, I'm ready to go with thee both into prison and to death. Now, here it is. Peter, he can't see it. Peter, he's not seeing it. He's saying, you got to be kidding me. No, not me. Listen. He says, listen, Jesus, I'm down with you. I'm going with you all the way to the end, baby. I got your back. I'm not talking about you're talking crazy, Jesus. But you know what he really was having here? He was having here, in actuality, a case of what the Bible calls presumptuous sins. If you want to read more about this, I'm not going to turn to it right now, but Psalms 19, David spells it out there. But you know what presumptuous sins are? Presumptuous sins are the sins that are in your heart that you would commit under certain types of pressure, in certain types of situations that you don't know that you would do them. In fact, you probably say you won't do them. But under certain types of pressure, there are certain types of things that could push you into doing things that you wouldn't even realize that you would do. I love it when you read about it in Psalms 19 because David says this. He prays, he says, keep back thy servant also from presumptuous sins and let them not have dominion over me. He says, keep me back from those types of things that I don't know about myself. See, the truth of the matter is we're always learning about ourselves. No matter what you know, there's more to know. So David, he prays that. And so Peter, this is where you find him. He's dealing with the case of presumptuous sins. He's saying, I won't do it. And then Jesus goes on in verse 34 and he confirms it. He says, he said, I tell thee, Peter, the cock shall not crow this day before thou shalt thrice deny that thou knowest me. He says, Peter, listen, bro. Let me just tell you like this. I know you don't want to hear this, but this is how you're going to know it. By the time the day's over, you're going to not deny 3 times that you know me. Now, that's amazing to me in this process. You got to understand, Peter, he was always the one that was speaking something. When he saw Jesus on the water, he's first one, let me come to you. That's you. Let me get out here. You know, he was always the one. Who art thou? He says, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. He was the one always speaking forth. And yet, listen to me, one of the closest ones to him, watch this, he didn't just deny him once. You could just say maybe in a moment of pressure he could have just failed. He did it 3 times. 3 times. And Jesus, he goes out there, he lays it out there for him in that regard.